Yo, 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 I'm here. Don't worry. Behind the What's Right microphone, Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings and welcome to the program. Good to be here with you as always. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email. At What's Right Sam on Twitter, now known as X. Follow me there. Last night apparently, just before Hulk Hogan was laid to rest, in his town of Clearwater, Florida, they saw this cloud up in the sky. It literally looked like Hulk, striking a pose. A lot of people took pictures of this. And it reminded me something about the wrestling matches that we watched as kids, those of us growing up in the 80s and 90s, somewhere along the way. Just as we discovered that perhaps Santa was not real, we found that these matches were, by and large, theater, right? And there's a word for it. It's called kayfabe. It's, these fighters are pretend slamming each other, not intending to do harm, more to put on a show for the audience. And it's lovely. It's fun. It's all American. And that is what the Democratic Party has been reduced to now. Now, I just moments ago here got a notice from The Spectator that they went live with a piece I'd been waiting for. Ben Domenech writing for The Spectator World a piece called "Theater Kids Are Holding Texas Hostage." He describes the Democrats' antics and how they're holding up aid to damaged communities because, of course, the state legislature in Texas is handling more in the special session than just redistricting. Domenech writes, quote, "The decision by more than 50 Texas representatives to flee the state for the climes of California, New York, and Illinois, rather than confront the realities of their political margins, doesn't just act as a grandstanding method of opposition to a redistricting policy. It also is holding up the legislative response to recent disaster flooding, something of significant need to damaged communities. Their stunts will cost lives." Now, I know I talked about this yesterday. It's such a big story, and of course, Paxton, the Attorney General in the state of Texas, who is running for, or I should say, opposing in the primary John Cornyn. Cornyn is a longtime Texas senator, Republican senator, who has frequently been at odds with Trump. Paxton is a Trump ally and someone who would be a much more consistent MAGA voice in the Senate. So I think balancing the equities, would love to see Paxton prevail in that race and take the Senate seat there away from Cornyn. At any rate, Paxton is, as the Attorney General, is digging his heels in. He's going to chase these guys down, the 50 or so representatives who absconded, who left the state, so that the Texas legislature would not have a quorum, so business there would grind to a halt. Now, it's performative. I think I used the term theater kids yesterday, so that, Domenech here in The Spectator just echoing that sentiment. I mean, we're in full agreement. But it's getting, folks, there's a broader thing here at play. The Democrats have simply been ineffective in every regard to counter Trump. And it goes back beyond just the 2024 election. Now, Democrats see their party as weak and ineffective. This, according to The Independent. This news came out on Monday. More than 1 in 3 Democrats consider that their party basically is spineless. This is not good. And the Democrats, I believe, in their internal polling, are seeing even worse results. They're seeing much more of this. And so they're absolutely terrified. So what they're trying to do, everywhere they go, they're trying to do something to look like they're doing something. Let's talk about immigration, for example. So Trump gets into office, signs a bazillion executive orders, a number of them dealing with immigration. Suddenly, the border that could not be closed by Joe Biden until Democrats and Republicans agreed on a ridiculous bill in the House and Senate that gave away $130 billion to Ukraine. Suddenly, the same border was closed. Suddenly, ICE, even before the big beautiful bill, was out there making arrests. Suddenly, the entire policy of the United States of America facilitating the easy transfer of illegal immigrants into and around this country was over. Ta-da, presto. The Democrats were reduced to doing what exactly? I think they were showing up at the detention facilities, right? Knock, 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 open the door. That was it. That's all they had. I mean, and then resulted, I think one member of the House assaulted an ICE agent or federal agent and ended up, facing charges, getting arrested. These are members of the top legislative body of the United States. Argue the House is second to the top, regardless. They're in Congress. Between them and the Senate, they are the lawmakers of the United States of America. But the only way that the Democrats really function is a la Antifa. Show up, make noise, bang pots and pans, create violence and chaos, and hope people pay attention. Side note, speaking of Antifa and, of course, immigration, what else did the Democrats do? Well, they took whatever money they still had trickling through the USAID funnels, the last little spigot of cash, and they used it to pay off militant organizations, groups supporting illegal immigrants, bought cinder block bricks, and went and tore up Los Angeles. Fabulous stuff, but par for the course for today's Democratic Party. But other issues as well. Where have they gotten their way? Nothing that they touch is getting done. Nothing that they've opposed is getting. What about the trans issue? Literally, as we speak, while they call it gender affirming care, but child mutilation surgeries, centers that have for years now been ruining and destroying kids, are being shut down across the country. And I think the last little, blurb about this I heard was from allies of Zohran Mandami in New York, the Democratic Socialists of America, holding a press conference with the socialists, talking about how they're going to make New York the center of opposition to this. As if an issue where 90% of Americans think it is ridiculous to give life-altering drugs and surgical treatment to 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds is a way to win over the country. So again, they're losing, and in the first time of my life, I feel as though we are seeing a rollback of all the Democratic insanity and Republicans actually acting like Democrats. In other words, Republicans going out there, as Democrats once did, and taking over institutions and just riding roughshod over the opposition and absolutely making their policy law. It hasn't happened. My entire life has always consisted of watching, Republicans get elected every once in a while and then spending the next 4 years apologizing for it. Our party is strong. Our party knows where the levers of power are located. Our party is pulling those levers, is getting stuff done, and the Democrats are crying their eyes out, stomping their feet, basically much like a toddler who wants an ice cream cone. Speaking of, Joe Biden loves his ice cream. I tell you, I'll get to Joe Biden. We have the stuff on, even the media. I mean, look at the cancellation of USAID and all the NPR money. Isn't it interesting how many shows have been taken off of air? The latest, Howard Stern. I'll get into this and more. This program, lots to cover. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, welcome back. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, the only law firm to trust with your personal injury case. 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Now, the Texas Democrats absconding to various states, including Illinois, California, and now even a few have trickled over to Massachusetts. They have dispersed around the country like a political diaspora. It's fascinating. Now, one of the things that I'm deeply humored by are the Democrat governors in those states who are treating them as though they are heroes. And it suggests to me that there is a broader campaign. We saw yesterday, played the clip on the show, the head of the DNC, showing up at one of these press conferences and making this a cause for the Democratic Party to fight the redistricting efforts in Texas. And I think beyond just the obvious case of being terrified of what losing 5 seats in Congress would mean for the Democrats, they also see this as an opportunity to show that they are resisting and doing something and countering the narrative that Trump is running roughshod over the Democrats, that they're ineffective, unable to fight back or affect any kind of actual change. By the way, Trump, it's all connected, right? Trump has broken the resistance machine. This case against Obama that's developing, against Brennan, against, all the people, Clinton, all the people that ran the Russia collusion hoax on Trump, the case against him is bigger than just holding the individuals accountable, though I of course, that's a big part of this. He's also dismantled whatever hopes the Democrats have had to do what they did to Trump in his first term. Back in 2017, this time, roughly 200 days or so into Trump's first term, well, now we're in a second term, but 200 days in, they were already well underway of removing him from office. Remember, I played a clip for you after Trump was elected, but before he was sworn in, from a prominent Democratic lawyer describing exactly the kind of lawfare things that they would do. They would file all sorts of court cases against him. They would venue shop. They would go to judges like Boasberg in D.C. and get, favorable rulings and tie Trump up in the courts. How's that going? It worked for a hot minute. But if you'll notice something about how these things are working out is slowly these cases got processed and taken to higher courts, including the Supreme Court. And the temporary injunctions holding up Trump's policies were lifted. The cases in chief need to still be decided on their merits, but that litigation's on the slow boat to China. Trump's going to liquidate every illegal immigrant in the country before that case gets decided. The objective was always the restraining order. The objective was always to tie Trump down to the courts. This is just one way the Democrats have completely failed in their stated mission to stop Trump. They can't stop Trump. And chief among them, the reasons I think that they can't stop him is they really did pull out every last trick they had, including raiding Trump's personal residence, arresting him 4 or 5 times, miring him in criminal prosecutions across the country. And the man is just made of Teflon. I mean, whatever you throw at him doesn't stick it. And in fact, if anything, it makes him stronger. Can you imagine the level of exasperation that the Democrats must feel right now? Meanwhile, the Republicans are just like, okay, we're here to do business. I mean, look at this is Ken Paxton getting interviewed very nonchalantly. This is the Attorney General of Texas, getting asked what they're going to do. And they're like, well, we're going to chase him down. We're going to arrest him. If that doesn't work, we're going to call him in and we'll just replace him. Listen to this.
We are focused on alternatives that we can implement at the state level. One of those is we can arrest these. So you will see some action that we will attempt to make those arrests. If that doesn't work, we're also going to give them till Friday, because that's the next day that the legislature meets, to show up on Friday. If they don't, then we are going to file motions to try to remove some of these legislators from office. So that's where we're at now. We'll see what happens. At the very least, I guarantee you this, we can outweight them if these other alternatives don't work, and eventually we'll get the vote that we need.
There it is. It's just going to happen. All right, you guys, he's dismissing it as a performative stunt. That's my point. So I'm just, it's and again, the blue wave that they're expecting. Remember, this was the entire point of the midterms. The Democrats were going to build up, gin up all this opposition to Trump, and it would culminate in November 2026 when they would have the election. And suddenly, voila, the groundswell of public support and opposition to Trump would see a triumphant return of the Democratic Party to Congress. It's not really going to happen. Matt Taglia, senior director of Emerson College Polling, a nonpartisan group that routinely administers political opinion surveys, says it's looking more like a blue trickle. And fundraising, how's that going? Because that's another part of this, Robbie. I'm convinced that these stunts are designed to get Democrats to donate. And since they can't launder money the way that they used to through Act Blue, and since we have organizations like the Teachers Union, like Planned Parenthood, that are getting their wings clipped by the Trump administration, there's a lot less money flowing back to the Democrats in that money laundering scheme. The Congressional Leadership Fund, the top House GOP PAC, it revealed it had $32.7 million in the first 6 months of the year, compared to its Democratic rival at only $22.1 million. And my argument would be that we Republicans aren't particularly tickled by Congress right now. I have not run into a single MAGA Republican friend that comes up to me excited about Mike Johnson. Oh yeah, that Mike Johnson guy, boy, Sam, isn't he great? And my retort to it is Mike Johnson's, better than some of the past Republicans that we've had. I mean, Paul Ryan, right? It wasn't that long ago that Trump was in his first term, in 2017. Paul Ryan was in charge. An active Trump obstructionist. But when I see scenes like the ones earlier this week with the Senate led by Republicans, John Thune gleefully announcing that they would come back into session every week for a few minutes just to thwart Trump's ability to make recess appointments. And those two baboons behind, him, Mirejovsky and Collins from Alaska and Maine, respectively, two of the, I'm getting my safari animals mixed up. Rhinos. Two rhinos sitting behind him, just I'm so happy. Oh, we stuck it to Trump. Boy, absolute losers. I saw, not to get off the point here, but Mirejovsky in Alaska has been a giant rhino from day one and got that seat basically handed to her. Her dad died, right? It was her dad's seat. So it's a little bit of, little political patronage. Got the seat, took it over after her dad died. And her approval rating in Alaska, I think, is at 30% is what I saw. 30%. So, zippity-doo-dah, might be time to go rhino hunting. And by that, I strictly mean politically, right? I'm not advocating for anything sinister. Okay, we come back. Let's talk about the latest Democrat governor, a governor of Massachusetts, who has entered the fray on this Texas legislature mess. She stepped in it something fierce. You do not want to miss this. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email. And of course, on X, formerly known as Twitter, you can reach me at What's Right Sam. So, first off, by the way, news yesterday spreading that tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, there would be an announcement. Today, actually. It's going to be today, 4:30 p.m. Are we following this? It's right now. Robbie, are you nodding? I should have asked you this in the break, but the announcement, Trump says there's going to be a big announcement. It turns out it might be something related to a deal with Apple. But yesterday, I got a little ahead of myself and I thought, again, there's going to be some announcements here sooner or later about all these prosecutions, because on the 8th, 2 days from now, we have a anniversary coming up. 3 years since the raid on Mar-a-Lago. Something to just file away and keep in the back of your mind. So, Democrat kayfabe. Kayfabe, of course, is, fake fighting in professional wrestling. Presenting staged performances as authentic or genuine. And that's a form of political kabuki, if you will. The performative act of doing something to please your voters. Republicans do this too, right? For example, for most of my life before Trump, whenever Republicans would talk about doing something with immigration, closing the border, etc., that was our form of kayfabe, right? Because that never happened. So, okay. Well, here's the Massachusetts governor. This is great. So I'm humored by the fact that you've got J.B. Pritzker and the clown in California and now the lady in Massachusetts, who have states with high murder rates, high break-in rates, high rapes, right? Lots of bad stuff going on, people fleeing the cities. Chicago, Pritzker, for Pete's sake, Chicago is like gangland USA. And that fat guy is getting up there going, oh, Trump and Texas. Stop worrying about Texas. Start worrying about your own state. So I'm watching this press conference earlier today with the governor of Massachusetts. Not Mitt Romney. That was once upon a time. But the governor of Massachusetts, got up, and her name is Maura Healey. And, almost heard the criticism because she spends this whole time talking about what's going on in Texas. And then, without even skipping a beat, she starts explaining how she's doing all of this for her state. I got to play this. Here's the part where, and mind you, she'd already been talking for at least 2 minutes.
As governor of Massachusetts, every day I am focused on the lives of people in Massachusetts.
Are you, though?
Whether that's cutting taxes, lowering costs for housing, creating jobs. What's happening in Texas matters to the people of Massachusetts, and it matters to people all over this country. If we don't have a fair election system in this country, that hurts all Americans. We've seen the impact in Massachusetts of Donald Trump's cuts to Medicaid and anti-hunger programs, and the way his tariff tax has raised costs for everyone. This is, to be really clear about it, a partisan craven political power grab attempt by the President of the United States, Governor Greg Abbott, and AG Paxton. That's what this is.
I like that Cape Cod lesbian chic style she has, Robbie. It's not really my thing, but I'm not gonna lie. But you know, I'm sure it can work for some manly women out there. What's the problem here? You literally have a woman who is the governor of a state. Okay, seems like a nice lady. She's concerned about hashtag democracy, about people having a voice, about our representational system of government. It all sounds great. In Massachusetts, about 35% of the state, believe it or not, okay, not a lot, but not nothing, are Republicans. How many Republican congressmen are there from Massachusetts? I think Massachusetts has 9 congressional districts. 9 districts. Okay. They have gerrymandered the freaking heck out of the state to the point that there are exactly 0 districts where a Republican has been elected. In fact, a Republican, not one GOP Republican rep has been elected since 1994. So, you see, again, it's all a clown show, which, by the way, was beautiful when a reporter decides to ask the governor of Massachusetts, who cares about Massachusetts, but she's there talking about what's going on in Texas. She asks her, so are you going to do some tit for their tat? Are you going to fight back against Republicans and do something like what Gavin Newsom is threatening to do, is to do your own redistricting, your own gerrymandering? Here's the question and the answer.
Other governors have talked about redistricting in retaliation. Is that something you would consider in Massachusetts?
You know, isn't it a sad state of affairs that that's where we're at, okay? And, you know, Donald Trump, Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton have left us no choice. That's the reality. Nobody came looking for this, right? We had a system of free and fair elections. We have maps that are regularly drawn, voted on by legislatures, approved and signed off on by governors. This is the way the system works until this comes in. And so, you know, they've left us no choice. It's not where anyone wants to be. I can tell you that governors I know, maybe with the exception of this person in Texas, evidently, we want our constituents represented. We want the voices heard. Whether you vote for me or not, I want your voice to count. I want your vote to count.
No, you don't.
Unlike Greg Abbott, who doesn't want your voice to count and doesn't want your vote to count, nor does Donald Trump, nor does Ken Paxton, because they're proposing to completely rewrite a map out of nowhere to take away the votes and the voices of Texans.
Okay, listen, Toots, let me explain something to you. You know, there are 35% Republicans in the state of Massachusetts. Now, she just said, whether you vote for me or not, you know, or you vote for me or not, I want your voice to be heard. And yet they have designed the districts in Massachusetts in such a way that not one Republican has won anywhere. It's interesting because there are pockets of majority Republican support in the state. There are areas where there are more registered Republicans than Democrats. And before you tell me, well, Sam, those pockets can't be very big, since I brought up Mr. Romney, former governor of the great state of Massachusetts, he was governor there from 2003 to 2007. Did we not forget this? So, now remember, I told you what was the last Republican to be in office was elected in 94. He was defeated in 96 after, So remember, after that election, when Romney left office, these Democrats in Massachusetts gerrymandered the state to such an extent that not another Republican won. So, I don't know. Once upon a time, there were enough people that voted for Romney. Look, family friend of my wife's, I need to be very nice about Romney, but she gets mad at me when I trash him too much. But I have my thoughts on Romney, and I think you and I agree. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. But he was still a Republican, and he still won. You see how ridiculously clown these people are? They're just they are lying to your face. And they just, and by the way, I think they're used to talking to people who never question them. This is where we're at. And by the way, since Illinois, right? You've seen the Illinois maps; they're circulating around. I shared it. I mean, it was just because it was such a here. I still have it loaded. I mean, this is the Illinois map. Look at this. That's the old map on the left, the new map on the right, where they've literally created this long sort of looks like, I don't know, like just this long little dangling thing going through Springfield and capturing all the Democrats there in order to create a district. Look at this other district around here. It just goes, it goes across half the state. I mean, Chicago, they're fine. Everybody's blue in Chicago. But for the most part, look at all the Republicans outside of the greater Chicago area. There's a minimum here, if you look at it, 1, 2, 3 Democratic seats created out of thin air, carved out of areas deep inside Republican territory. The definition of gerrymandering. Now, I'm just, so for me, when Pritzker does the same thing as Miss Massachusetts and goes, our democracy and what happens in Texas matters to people in Illinois. No, the Democrats are looking out for themselves. And the Democrats want to be able to go into Congress and bring back the Joe Biden years while Trump is still in office for the last 2 years. They are desperate to seize control over Congress. But between the Republicans pushing this in Texas, this is another important point. I think it's New York and California that could still, gerrymander some more. Like, California's threat of gerrymandering districts and creating a problem could be a legitimate one. Same with Texas, New York, because there are some Republican seats in California. There are some Republican seats in New York. Well, it's 7 out of 26, okay? California has 9 Republican districts out of 52. But the risk for the Democrats is that Florida can join this fight. A whole lot of red states really haven't been that badly gerrymandered. And so what's going on is, they're looking at, everywhere from Iowa to Kansas to, they're going all through, they'll find places to get additional seats. And what basically seems to be the case is that Republicans could pick up as many as 10 to 15 seats in the aggregate, even if Democrats in California and New York are successful in retaliating. And that's a big if. So it's all going to fall flat, is my point. Quick break here. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right show brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. 30 minutes ago, Attorney General Ken Paxton of Texas issuing a statement that he's launched an investigation into Beto O'Rourke's radical group for unlawfully funding runaway Democrats. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Welcome to the program. The What's Right show brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust for your personal injury case. 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. O'Rourke ran for the Senate in Texas. He's the Kennedy relative. He's pretending to be Hispanic. I think that's his whole shtick, right? He's got the name that he's taken on. Is kind of a total limp noodle, but he has been making waves on this, and he's trying to get up there and fight the radical Republicans in the state legislature. Here he is on CNN today, talking to Pam Brown, discussing the Texas redistricting plan. By the way, he's a former representative. So he, a former member of Congress, lost that election. I think he stepped down. Can't remember, but he ran for the Senate, obviously opposing, Ted Cruz. Yeah, he ran against Ted Cruz. Failed. So here's O'Rourke today sounding off about this. Have a listen.
As we mentioned, you're helping to cover the costs for these Democrats who fled. You did the same thing in 2021 when Democrats fled the state over a voting bill. They ultimately returned and the bill was passed. Yet at that time, you spent over $500,000. I mean, we could see a similar scenario this time around. Is it worth it?
Absolutely. You know, if we fail, the consolidation of authoritarian power in America will be nearly unstoppable. That means more masked, plainclothes federal agents without badges or warrants sweeping our fellow Americans up off the streets. It means more retribution and persecution and even violence for Trump's political opponents. And it also means that a Republican majority Congress with these 5 stolen seats, if we allow them to succeed, will roll out the royal red carpet for a Trump third term. So this is literally for all the marbles.
Yeah, it's for all the marbles. The problem is, mentioned this yesterday, if he and his radical group is funding these Democrat state legislators that have absconded, have left, and are violating their duty, it might constitute an illegal bribe, because influencing how a member of the state house is conducting themselves politically and paying somebody to influence them as a politician, of course, is illegal pretty much everywhere. So it's just something that's going to backfire. Now, how are other people perceiving this? This is what's interesting. Because I don't think this is, I mean, there's even prominent Democrats who say that this whole thing is kind of a joke, and it's probably not going to go anywhere. Colbert, this is last night on the Late Show. He's coming to an end soon, but he's still kicking, sounding almost reasonable on this topic. And again, he's got Pritzker there. So Governor Pritzker of Illinois, who we've mentioned a few times earlier.
Easy districts in Illinois. Take a look at this. Look at 17 here. It does that. Then it comes up here and it sneaks around there and goes all the way up here and then goes right over there like that. And look at this one, kind of goes whoop up there. It's like the stinger on a scorpion down here. Is this common for all states to do?
Well, we handed it over to a kindergarten class and let them decide.
Okay, and that's the nonpartisan group that does this
Absolutely.
For you guys?
That's our independent commission, you know. That is, yeah. I mean, look.
So because all states, to a certain extent, do this, why is what Texas doing particularly egregious in this case?
Well, here, every 10 years we do a census in this country, and right after the census, we redraw districts in every state. But what the Republicans are trying to do, and the Texas Republicans, frankly, at the behest of Donald Trump, are doing it mid-decade. That is extraordinarily rare.
That's an important point.
Yeah, but again, it's not. It's rare. Did somebody say it was illegal? Unconstitutional? Does it violate anything? Even Colbert's skeptical of this whole thing, right? So to me, this just all this is not really taking off the way they'd intended. Here's Chuck Todd, Monday on CNN on the Toddcast, said that Illinois is dumb. It's a dumb place to go to protest gerrymandering.
I think they think the more painful they can make this in doing it, maybe there's a way to shut this down. So I understand the strategy, and I think you get this. The part that I think is sort of bad, I think it's a bad look for a party that claims to be always trying to protect the democracy, is to hole up in a state that gerrymanders. The state of Illinois. I mean, one of the worst, look, Texas, Florida, Illinois, and Maryland. Those are your 4 giant gerrymandered states. And if you're trying to make a point on gerrymandering, I don't think I'd be going to the state of Illinois as a place to hide.
All of a sudden, a whole lot of Americans who had no idea how badly gerrymandered Illinois was is looking at it going, you Democrats, are you kidding me? What the hell is that? I can read a map. I know what you're up to. All right, speaking of Republican wins, let's get into immigration. A little fight with Governor Lombardo in the state of Nevada. I will explain when we return. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Greetings and welcome to the What's Right Show, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m., right here on News Talk 840, KXNT. So I'm sure you've heard things are getting spicy between the Trump administration and Governor Joe Lombardo right here in our state, great state of Nevada, over this designation that the Department of Justice has given Nevada as a sanctuary jurisdiction. Trump signed an executive order back on the 28th of April, and he directed the identification and publication of a list of just such sanctuary jurisdictions that impede federal immigration enforcement. And this has led to the DOJ designating Nevada as one such state. All right. This came out just a couple days ago. It's ruffling a lot of feathers. Let's talk about it. I texted a Democratic friend of mine about this, and I said, are we a sanctuary state? I was kind of interested to see what he would say. I actually reached out to a couple of my Democratic friends, and they all say no. In the minds of a Democrat, we are an aggressive enforcer of immigration policy. We don't shelter illegal aliens, right? Et cetera, et cetera. This is how they see it. But the reality is that we're squishy here. It's not Lombardo's fault. This all precedes him. For example, we do give driver's licenses to illegals. And we've done this since 2014, okay? This is not on Lombardo. This is a Senate Bill 303. It's active as of now, all right? There's no universe in which a Democrat supermajority in the state legislature would discontinue this, all right? Now, they're special, there's a little special. They're called DACs. Driver authorization cards is what they're called. And, the applicant, they have to prove Nevada residency, okay, like a utility bill. Have to pass the driving test, et cetera, et cetera. My point is, okay, and it says driver authorization card and not valid for identification, all right. But it's an argument, right? That's one thing. But there's other things on the list, right? In AB 376, that's an Assembly bill, Keep Nevada Working Act from 2021, there is a refusal to honor ICE detainers without a judicial warrant. So state and local law enforcement agencies can't hold individuals solely based on an ICE detainer. There's a restriction on information sharing, right? Public agencies, law enforcement, courts, schools, health facilities can't notify ICE. Limits on ICE access to jails and interviews. ICE agents are restricted from accessing the state or local jails. So this is a general DOJ sanctuary criteria. Now, don't shoot the messenger. I'm telling you what it is. This is not Lombardo's fault. Lombardo doesn't want this. And the other thing I'll tell you is, I don't know if you remember, well, there's other things, right? State resources for federal enforcement, prohibition on that. Oh, this is good. This is something Lombardo, as I understand it, his office has continued this. There is a office here in the state, the governor's office for new Americans. And it provides services like integration assistant, legal aid referrals, and advice on interacting with law enforcement, which, I'm all for helping legal immigrants assimilate and become productive citizens. I don't have a problem at all with that. But I do have an issue with the way this is worded. And when you look at Victor Jakes from the RJ did a couple of posts about this. He's been writing about it a lot. And when you look at the write-up and some of the stuff that this office of the governor for New Americans does, it's really designed to help illegals evade law enforcement. Okay? So that's a problem. And maybe that's something Lombardo could cancel. I don't know if that requires a vote from the legislature. So now, okay, I want to go back to, remember, Trump begins to enforce aggressively immigration law. Tom Homan, goes out, deploys the paddy wagons. You start having the first raids. The Democrats begin having, conniption fits, getting the vapors. And one of the first things I remember here locally was this really terrible statement that came out from Metro, came out from the sheriff's office. Now, I like Kevin McMahill. He's a good guy. And I think he stepped in it a little bit, which is to say that McMahill almost immediately sort of issued this statement. And I don't know if it came from him, was approved by him, somebody in his command, whatever it was. But it read essentially that, we're not here to enforce immigration, law. We're here to just, to maintain law and order, and we're not going to participate in any of it. And it would be the type of statement that would have been appropriate 8 years ago. No, not appropriate for us, but it's the kind of statement that a majority of Americans and a majority of Nevadans certainly would have said, okay, I get it. The feds are Trump's doing his thing, but, we're here to, maintain safety in the community, and that's what matters. And, we don't want our cops becoming immigration officers. He withdrew that statement pretty frickin' quickly because there was an outcry. If you remember, there was people were not pleased. And I thought about it a lot since then because I think a lot of Republicans that are, and I'm not saying this about McMahill or about Lombardo, but these are Republicans that are primarily interested about getting reelected to the office that they're in, and perhaps, in McMahill's case, has some aspirations for higher office. And when you're in Nevada, you're constantly told, you look at this super Democrat majority or near super majority in the legislature, and you see all these Democrats in Clark County, and you see that Trump lost the election here in 2020, and you go, I can't be I can't be a MAGA Republican. I can't be tough on immigration. This is not going to sell here. But what they don't realize, and would be my advice if anybody asks me from the governor's office, is if we were able to, over the next 3.5 years, to clean up illegal immigration in the state of Nevada, the state might actually become a lot more red. The problem is that we have, by some counts, up to 600,000, yes, 600,000 illegal immigrants in the state of Nevada. That's a lot. Think about all the advantages that that's giving to certainly to the to the congressional districts, but in conjunction with all the funny ballots that Sisolak and the legislature deployed under COVID, all the mail-in ballots, all the no verification of ID and all this stuff. It's a lot of political pressure, a lot of political power in the hands of individuals that are running around with driver's licenses and addresses, right? I'm convinced, this would be my, again, my friendly advice to McMahill and to Lombardo. I like that Lombardo has strongly made it clear that he is not for making Nevada a sanctuary state. I believe him and I take him at his word. I also can tell you that if Lombardo were to somehow lose, the election. I don't believe that's going to happen, but he's being challenged by A.A. Ron Ford, who is a leftist. A.A. Ron Ford would absolutely make us a second California. It would be like a poorer, hotter California. If A.A. Ron Ford became governor, we could pack it up and go home. Somewhere, like maybe to Mars where they're building, or the moon where they're building the, the nuclear power plant. Sean Duffy announced that the other day. I have no idea what that's all about. But regardless, my advice to Lombardo and to McMahill, to the extent that they can, is help Trump clean it up here. Let's do it. Let's clean it up. The power of the culinary union will wane. The culinarists, by the way, are the largest service worker union here in Nevada, and they are essentially an auxiliary arm of the Democratic Party. They are the Democratic Party in Nevada. They're an enormous political force. If they lose a few 100,000 members through deportations, and we have a rebalancing of the labor market, it's going to be a little bit painful, but it can happen. I mean, the whole state of Nevada changes politically for decades to come. That's the play, right? So, anyway, I got it. I'm just telling you. That's my take on this. And I think Trump's DOJ correctly calls into question some of these practices. They are not Lombardo's fault. They are not the fault of our governor, but they are the result of having for many years Democrats in charge of our state legislature. So these local elections that we sometimes ignore are very, very important. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840. Back in a moment. Don't go anywhere. The What's Right show will continue in a moment.
The Salmon Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
So the announcement from the White House appears to be related to Apple. Screens for iPhones and Apple Watches will be produced in the United States in a plant in Kentucky, I believe. This is about a $600 billion investment. Again, Trump's promise to repatriate jobs to the United States getting fulfilled each and every week of this administration. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Another thing that has occurred, by the way, in the last 24 hours, as various banking types are meeting up in Aspen, hobnobbing and discussing grand things like finance, interest rates, and ways to fleece American customers. Trump is just doing what he does best, a complete and total troll. Yesterday he went on CNBC, and it was a call that was wild. He talked about all sorts of different things, and one of the moments there is he was describing the CEO of Bank of America. Bank of America deplatformed, debanked, okay, many conservatives. I know people that were affected by this. John Eastman had his accounts at Bank of America canceled. Trump himself had his Bank of America accounts canceled and new accounts denied. Went to them with money from his deal on Truth Social, and they said no. This is epically scandalous. We've just sort of forgotten about it. Even conservatives have forgotten about it. We cannot let this go. It was egregious. So Trump, yesterday, CNBC gave his call. He just put up there this little aside about his conversations before, when he was first president, then he was out of office, and now that he's back in office with the Bank of America CEO.
What happens is I call up Bank of America routinely because when I was president, this was after I got out, by the way, I call up Bank of America routinely, and I speak to him, and I speak to a couple of people, and they have zero interest. Brian was kissing my ass when I was president, and when I called him after I was president to deposit $1 billion plus and a lot of other things, more importantly to open accounts, and he said, we can't do it. No, we can't do it.
So, interesting. This was a clip this was yesterday morning, and then shortly after, the clip was played for Brian Moynihan getting interviewed on the same network, but by a different host. So the host plays the clip for Brian Moynihan, the CEO of Bank of America. Listen to his response.
You heard it. Were you watching TV when this was happening?
Well, so I got up early because we're on East Coast time. I was working out and I was watching your wonderful show, and he came on, and I'm telling you, I'm still trying to unsee some of the visuals that he created with his commentary. But look, the president's after the right thing, which is the laws, rules, and regulations around our industry became used to cause things to happen. It's whether it's BSA, ML, whether it's KYC, whether it's reputational risk, and you heard Tim Scott quote about it. It is right to go look at these rules because at the end of the day, they are causing decisions to be made that can be looked at in retrospect and made differently. We should get these rules right. So our company, my colleague companies, the industry has been working with the Treasury Administration today, in this administration, trying to figure out how to get these rules balanced so that we're not subject to this swinging back and forth and this after the fact look. So the president's on the right issue. He asked me about it in Davos. We were there. Right. He talked about it this morning, and I welcome getting this fixed. At the end of the day, we bank 70 million consumers, more small business than anybody else, 12 million small business, more middle market companies than anybody else. We bank everybody. But the reality is we want to make sure that the rules and regulations don't cause decisions to be made that then are looked at in the aftermath and dealt differently.
What the hell does that even mean? What a mealy-mouth, lame answer. This guy is a complete weasel. Well, things are looking at differently, and, we got to do things, but things cause things to have occurred. I mean, it's Kamala Harris. Word salad. Stephen Miller has announced on Fox News moments ago that Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, is crafting a new policy to crack down on banks who have debanked conservatives. He said, quote, "We've worked closely with Bessent on developing a financial enforcement mechanism to ensure that those who participate in the banking system are not debanking and financially deplatforming Americans as a result of their political beliefs." I think you and I would agree that that is the right thing to do. And can you imagine Zohran Mamdani, I'm only ranting about him for the past 2 months. I'm not happy about the guy, Democratic Socialists of America, not my people. But do I want to live in a country that takes away their bank accounts? Hell no. That's not who we are. And you don't get to be Bank of America and then go after conservatives. That's a double middle finger for you, okay? And I hope every person who allowed this to happen at the bank gets fired, including this loser CEO that can't even put a comprehensive sentence together on this. Oh, I can't unsee what Trump just said. Trump's just saying that you're a weasel. Trump's point is very important. When Trump was in power, they kissed up to him. When Trump was out of power, they took his bank accounts away. And now Trump is back in power, and I hope he uses whatever amount of power that he has to destroy these clowns. It's the only way you're gonna learn your lesson. There has to be accountability for Obama. There has to be accountability for this Moynihan guy. There has to be accountability for JP Morgan Chase. And every single bank that participated in this, the CEOs and various leaders at Twitter and Meta. I don't know if there will be. I just think there ought to be, because these people did bad things. Now, sometimes, do you ever feel like you're living in a parallel universe from the left? Yeah, I have an example of this, and I'll get to this here after the break, because occasionally I'll go on MSNBC and I'll turn the dial over there and I'll listen to, let's say, Rachel Maddow. And there was something in her open on Monday that was so wildly nuts that I have to play it for you. So I'll get to that. And I'm going to do it. I promised we'd talk about Howard Stern. Just as a radio guy, I want to talk about Stern because, of course, we've learned that Sirius is taking him off air. So we'll get into that here after the break when we come back. But of course, I still also got, Robbie, we get so much to cover. I hope we can get into some of the Mike Benn stuff, talking about the 2 attempts on Trump's life and just how suspicious this whole thing is when you look at the connections. And I remind everybody, maybe about a week and a half ago, there was a tweet, a social media post that Dan Bongino put up. And he goes, basically, now that I'm in the FBI, I can't really get into any details, but I just have to tell you, I've seen things that have shaken me to my core. I'm telling you, there will be more revelations that are even more, just even more horrifying than we can even, I think, imagine at this point. We'll get to it here. 30 minutes left. I can do it. I can do it. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Friends, today we're celebrating on the What's Right show 199 days of Trump 2.0. So almost tomorrow, 200 days of Trump, something noteworthy. And also on the What's Right show, celebrating a 1-year anniversary of one Kamala Harris picking little Timmy Waltz to be her vice president. Those were the days. News out of D.C. that 2 15-year-olds were arrested now in connection with attacking Doge staffer, a.k.a. Big Balls. This is the guy, Edward Korstein, who's part of Elon Musk's original Doge crew. He's still hard at work, saving us money. He's 19 years old. He was in a car. Some youths demanded the vehicle. He was protecting his lady friend that was with him, and in the scuffle was beaten up. I don't have any word on how the other 2 assailants fared, but they are now in big trouble, as they say. Now, speaking of big trouble, I was watching Rachel Maddow. I regretted it almost instantly, but then I realized I had some great material for the show, so I allowed it. Folks, I watch these shows so you don't have to, all right? Her opening told me exactly, A, how much Trump is winning, how successful we are as Republicans right now in Washington. And B, it gave me a real insight as to the demoralization in the Democratic Party. Perhaps it explains some of this kayfabe, some of this kabuki performance art that the Democrats are doing all over the country, trying to make it seem like they're relevant, fighting back against Trump. But actually, you know, Democrats in the know, even Democrats like Rachel Maddow, realize it's also futile. She almost sounds resigned. Listen, this is her opening monologue on Monday.
Life in the United States is profoundly changing, is profoundly different than it was even 6 months ago. Because we do now live in a country that has an authoritarian leader in charge. We have a consolidating dictatorship in our country. And it sounds melodramatic to say it, I know. But just go with that for a minute, right?
Okay,
think in melodramatic terms. Think in cinematic terms. Imagine the cartoon-level caricature of what you think a dictatorship looks like.
Use your imagination, she says, right? Just pretend. Yeah, this is Democrats to a T. It's like, ignore reality, just pretend. Yeah. Oh, it doesn't stop there. Don't worry. Here, play the tape, Rob.
It looks like. Right? And that kind of a cartoon caricature of an authoritarian country, the one you might have imagined in melodramatic and cinematic terms ever before we got here, you would expect, right, that you'd have a scapegoated minority group blamed for all things. In our case, immigrants, right? And the new extraordinary powers and shows of force by the secret police, among other things. All these extraordinary powers and shows of force will be framed as necessary to stop this terrible internal enemy, right? Frame everything as immigration enforcement. Because for immigration enforcement, not only is all force justified, but maximum force is preferred. And they're trying to make it into a national entertainment to threaten to feed immigrants to alligators. And
okay, wait, I'm pausing the tape because here in the tape she shows a headline from The Guardian, which is a leftist newspaper out of Great Britain, Migrants at ICE jail in Miami made to kneel to eat like dogs, report alleges. A typical leftist headline. I don't know what that is. It doesn't sound right to me, but okay.
In South Florida.
That's it. Okay, that's the clip. All right. Immigrants? We're not after immigrants. We're after illegals. You know, I saw this great video today. Perusing the internet, I found on X a video of ICE agents hiding in a box truck. So not in a van, not in an unmarked police-like vehicle, not even one of those rental cars that, you know, makes them blend in a little bit to the neighborhoods that they're in. No, they showed up in a Penske box truck. And the video was from inside the box truck, and the roller door goes up in the back, right? Goes, opens, and out come the ICE agents, and they're right in front of a East Los Angeles Home Depot. And this area, by the way, if you know the story here, this area is controlled by MS-13. Cleaning up illegal immigration takes away power from MS-13 and actually brings safety to the poorest citizens of Los Angeles. Rich, elitist, man-boy Democrats like Rachel Maddow, who live in doorman apartment buildings, who have security, who get picked up for work in black SUVs, who do not experience really any exposure to real public safety threats, pontificate about how Trump is turning this country into a police state. She couldn't imagine the level of fear that working class Americans feel in these blue cities that have tolerated criminal illegal aliens for so long that it's become a way of life. The thing that infuriates me fundamentally to my core is the elitism. It's repugnant of these Democrats, of these, oh my gosh, it's fascism. Oh, Trump is a fascist. And is law enforcement fascist? Is closing the border fascist? Is it totalitarian to see to it that people are safe? I mean, this is all ridiculous, right? So I just, I'm just, it's a good little check-in. The left is not doing well, okay? They're not doing well. None of this is working. And they've resorted to more of these sort of silly, silly tears. Now, speaking of silly tears, Howard Stern's show is not getting renewed, apparently. So he's got a big $500 million contract. He may do 1 or 2 years extension where he could pull it off, but he's done. And think about the list of left-wing shows that have gone off air or that have gotten canceled since the NPR money has gone away. Because we were always told, I was always told by the left, the NPR money, the public broadcasting money and support that our tax dollars go, it's for Elmo. It's for educational television, Sam. Poor kids in the hood aren't going to have TV. I'm like, I think there's plenty of ways to get good television out there. If it gets ratings, it's gonna sell, right? I mean, and why are billions of dollars going to this are actually, I never understood the argument. I was always opposed to NPR, PBS, all this stuff, right? I always saw it as taxpayer-funded, subsidized failure. Now, I am willing to accept some coincidences in life. I just have a difficulty believing that all of these shows, like all these money-losing leftist propagandist shows, are suddenly losing money. And when I say propaganda shows, here's Howard Stern talking to Biden during the election. This was just as things were heating up last year. And this is just a propaganda piece. I mean, this is so gross. And Biden's sitting there barely getting a word, and he looks like a corpse.
not only were you a star football player, but you were a lifeguard. I mean, you really, and you were the only white guy who was lifeguarding in this black community, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you were the one guy.
I was.
Your family is pretty, again, this goes to my point about, the president is the father of our country. That's something we all say. And I think your family is so extraordinary because of the way they've conducted themselves and how they are with you, that I feel you have a lot to give to the presidency. These are my feelings. It's pretty amazing family. And I'm
proud of it.
I submit.
Stop the tape. This is what? The family? Are we talking about Hunter Biden? Are we talking about Jill running her corpse of a husband just so she could remain in the White House with her Secret Service detail flying in Air Force One? We're talking about the brother, okay, who basically milked whatever influence he could from Joe to make $1 million here, $1 million there. These people are absolute, complete, total grifters. This thing kept going.
For your approval that when you have a loving family like that, you got a lot to give because you get so much from them. You're the kind of leader I love because we're lucky to have you in the Oval Office and serving as the father of the country. Because if you're a good father to your family, which you are, I know you'd be a good father to the country. And I want to thank you for providing a calming influence, an organized administration post-COVID, getting that vaccine out, getting NATO, getting us to feel comfortable, standing up to Putin. I don't know what people are looking for in a president, or maybe it's that people don't feel like they're getting enough or something. I don't know what it is, but I'll give you your greatest hits. The lowest uninsured rate in history. 4 out of 5 Americans are covered for less than $10 a month. Knocking off a few ISIS leaders.
Cutting
the emissions.
Cut the tape. I can't even listen. This is such bad radio. I don't know how this guy ever made so much money. That's terrible. Because he's just actually whoring himself out. I'm talking about Stern whoring himself out for a guy who likely is contributing through the U.S. government via our tax dollars to the financial viability of this program. Stern is a horrible human being. I remember growing up, I'd never listened to a show. It was just not my thing. But I listened a lot to Rush, and it always would irritate me when people would put basically Rush in the same category as Howard Stern. Oh, Rush is just a shock jock. Rush was an intellectual guy. Rush was an analyst. He had a brilliant mind. Howard Stern has toilet humor, okay? If that. Because then I was curious about it, so I put it on a few times. I was like, this is not listenable. What the hell is this? Stern had loathing for us, Trump voters. This is him talking about the people that voted for Trump.
I don't agree with Trump politically. I don't think he should be anywhere near the White House. I don't hate the guy. I hate the people who vote for him. I think they're stupid. I don't think I do. I'll be honest with you. I have no respect for you. Anyone unvaccinated would not be admitted to a hospital. At this point, they've been given plenty of opportunity to get the vaccine. They don't trust our government. They think that there's some conspiracy to turn them into a magnet or something like this. Now, if you don't get it, in my America, all hospitals would be closed to you. You're going to go home and die.
Gross. That's what he thinks of us, right? If you're a Trump-supporting, unvaccinated person, Howard Stern wanted you to die. I'm not going to play it. I thought I was going to play it, Robbie. It's so disgusting I can't even play it here on the program. Howard Stern in blackface, talking to a fake Whoopi Goldberg, satirizing Ted Danson and Whoopi, using the N-word, which of course we've bleeped out, but I'm still not going to play it. It's just gross. And Howard Stern was a horrible boss. There was an employee of his one time in 2018, an engineer whose wife had been battling non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he approached his bosses with a request if he could put out a GoFundMe at the office at the show. And anyway, so he got, Stern was like he actually shut it down, and he wouldn't put in any money himself, even though he hauled in like $90 million that year. Crazy. I've heard, Robbie, you said he's a good tipper. I heard he was a lousy tipper. He was mean to people. Worse than Ellen DeGeneres is how one industry insider described him, and DeGeneres has quite a reputation. Stern's longtime former sidekick, Artie Lang, tweeted in 2018, "Ask yourself why all your ex-loyal servants hate you. Just sad." The biggest difference, beside, of course, their intellect, between Rush and Howard Stern was, well, I tell you, Rush was absolutely wonderful to people, deeply generous and caring for everyone close to him, especially his staff. It's a well-known thing. So, I tell you, good riddance. Happy that this is over, and I think it's not coincidental. I think there was a lot of public broadcasting money that went to key liberal influencers to stay on air. And as soon as that money dried up, these companies made the hard financial decisions to not continue. Makes perfect sense to me. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. Yes, I know we're trying to get in a lot. I want to touch on this before it gets stale. You know, Mike Benz, who's an attorney by training and has absolutely dived into the deep state and its inner workings, has been talking about the 2 Trump assassination attempts. And this is interesting because it's starting to get a wider audience, not just online. It's now getting into, well, at least OAN. Matt Gaetz on his show had Mike Benz on, and a couple of things have come up. For example, the assassin, the would-be assassin of Trump's in Butler, Pennsylvania, this, young kid, whatever, who's living at home with his parents, they are not people of means. But we're told the kid is bright. Apparently was using encrypted chat programs that the FBI can't break. How would he get his hands on this, right? It's a question. And Benz raises this.
Well, we're told this is a kind of OPSEC child prodigy who was a disturbed kid who managed to have better operational security than most special forces folks. We're told that he had 3 or 4 encrypted chat apps on his phone, which is the reason that the FBI seems unable to break those and disclose what is in those texts. Maybe sidebar, I'd love to know what those apps are, because if they are so good that even the FBI can't crack them, you wonder, why are they not standard use?
Exactly. Yeah, tell us about these. And how come some kid in a little town somewhere, podunk town, with very little financial resources able to get his hands on this? Very suspicious. Now, he trained at a gun range. It's another thing that Matt Gaetz elicited from Mike Benz on Monday. This would-be assassin, the Trump shooter, Crooks was his name, trained at the same gun range used by certain DHS agents. And these DHS agents from HSI specifically are an interesting bunch, it turns out.
The gun range that Crooks trained at was the same one used by DHS, HSI, Homeland Security Investigations. They even planned an event, DHS there, one day after the 40-some times that Crooks was reported going to that exact gun range. If they had known, if, for example, Crooks was target shooting a picture of Donald Trump, or he had said something to an agent, the whole thing could have been kept in-house. We have whistleblower testimony that Secret Service agents that day were replaced by HSI agents because Secret Service was torn between the NATO summit and Jill Biden's trip abroad. And so HSI happens to be the exact part of DHS that played a very, very strange role in January 6th as well, recruiting undercover feds. It is now known that there were more than twice as many HSI agents from DHS involved on January 6th embedded in the crowd than there were FBI. And because DHS is not the investigative arm of the Justice Department like the FBI does, it has a longer leash to pursue more nebulous non-crimes. This is the same reason that the censorship apparatus started in DHS, because they wanted to have kind of the foreign-facing powers of the CIA to control media with the domestic jurisdiction of the FBI.
Isn't that interesting? The one agency that seems to be doing off-the-books stuff for the deep state, for Team Biden, also seems to be training at the same range, the same area that this Matthew Crooks guy is. Well, well, well. So this was getting curious. By the way, he also told Matt Gaetz, this Mike Benz, told Matt Gaetz that Ryan Root, Ralph, the other shooter, the Florida shooter, had thousands of foreign passports from just getting, he was procuring from fighters from the Ukraine, most war-torn parts of the planet. So he'd spend his whole day on WhatsApp, Facebook, Telegram, talking to all these different people, these OPSEC guys from Special Forces, CIA folks, and, it's very strange stuff. He was never investigated for all of the sketchy travel, even though he absolutely would have been on the Homeland Security radar. I don't know, maybe they used him too. Well, we'll keep on top of it. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT.